Quick question. Do I need to mute the fucking microphone when I vape?
Welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on Cosmos from independent validator teams.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Game of Nodes, where we punk our guests now when we start up. So
perfect.
This week we have myself, Usurper, Kufelic, and Highlander. So Kufelic, we're just going to call Simon today because I can't remember to keep saying that. So Highlander and Simon are from ChainTools, and maybe we can just start off with some introductions. So if I'll pass it over to Highlander, and Highlander, if you want to introduce yourself, give a little bit of history about Highlander nodes and now ChainTools, and we'll move on from there.
Hiya, I'm Highlander, as you know, from the community in sJUNO initially, but recently we've teamed up with Simon and formed ChainTools, and we're merging forces to try and expand further into the cosmos and help secure the interchain.
Did you freeze?
Nope.
That was it. Is that it?
That was it.
Short and sweet.
So just give us a bit more information about. So you used to be Highlander nodes. Yeah, Kufelic used to be. His moniker was Kufelic, but you guys have recently teamed up. And you've rebranded to Cosmos Tools. What's the tools part of that? So you obviously are still validators, and I guess are looking to provide additional things to Cosmos. So do you guys have a plan for the tools part?
Yeah, so we're going to, inspired a little bit by Paul Kujira's great work of recently, providing pairs, providing snapshots, stake sync, just enabling new validators to come on board and sort of quick sync themselves onto the networks that they're validating. But we want to try a little bit more by educating people as well. And also on top of that, while I'm learning a bit of coding and stuff, you're in the shot, while I'm kind of learning code and stuff, I'd like to try and set up a bit of an academy as well, not only for sJUNO, not only for EVOS, but obviously just trying to inspire the next wave of developers, engineers to come on, and because we're in a bear market at the moment, but Missy's great, man, funny.
Does your missus know that you're in?
She's like dancing about there. What was I say? I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so the next wave, we're in a bear market at the moment, so the next wave of new users come on board, and we're so far ahead in terms of technology and talking about cause and was and talking about loads of technical stuff, and most people will be like, what the fuck's a wallet? How do you set up a wallet? What is crypto? We want to try and just bring it back a little bit and slow down, go back to basics, and sort of bring all these kind of new people on board. So we thought we should team up together, because Simon's a very, very good systems DevOps engineer. I can't go further than 4 chains on my own. Four's pushing it. Both of us together teamed up. We thought already we're seeing good results in the space of 3 weeks, so it's been a positive move, something I've got really excited about recently as well, because we're in a bear market. It's nice to be busy and nice to be doing stuff and productive, and yes, it's a good feeling. So I left from Highlander nodes, and we've seemed to merge together as hopefully a good team going forward.
Awesome, fantastic. And Simon, mate, do you want to give us a bit of an introduction to yourself, mate?
Oh yeah, definitely. So As Rob mentioned, basically we teamed up recently because now we're validating different chains. I think I reached the critical mass of not being really able to drive this self going forward. Having 20 chains actually, only validators, then I start putting relayers in places where some RPC nodes and stuff like that. It's really like, for one man show, it's too much. So there is a need to team up. As we've been actually working on technical stuff for some time, it's been actually a year or even longer, basically. We bump onto each other on some test nets some time ago, and that's how it started. Actually decided that it's a good idea to move on. So basically start to systematize things and put like infrastructure things in one place. I can look after that and start actually looking after some bits and pieces we can deliver to the community as a team at this stage. Once actually we can take the load from each other on particular items, then we'll be more productive on interesting items. And what we're looking into, like Rob mentioned, this education piece. And in here, we want to really focus on piece for the end users, how to approach the ecosystem, how to use it, what advantages they can have, and basically what that is. That will be the one thing. But the second thing, we also want to focus on some technical stuff, because basically now you can see a lot of test nets, a lot of people coming, and they also need to have to learn the good habits, how to run the validator, how to run the node and stuff like that, not to expose, for example, chain for the security vulnerabilities, which is quite popular, right? Why you don't run the validator as a root, for example, why Docker might be dangerous, why you're not supposed to throw like a bunch of services on one system and so on, so on. So this will be also part we want to kind of encourage people to learn and to look into from technical perspective how to implement good habits in the environment and the systems. And a part of that, of course, jump into the new chains and keep providing services as we do at the moment, like Rob mentioned, infrastructure services. This is mostly my area, really. I'm around infrastructure and DevOps 20 plus years in IT, so I know that thing. Now trying to develop something with a little bit of a success sometimes, but yeah, that is also a space I want to jump into. And the tools piece also is, we got a couple of things in mind what we would like to deliver also, which is kind of automated way of deploying the node. Someone needs a full node, just here's the Ansible playbook, for example. Yeah? You just press the button, you don't need to build, compile anything, you don't need to know where the source code is, just put basically the name of the server, it will deploy this. So that will be this piece. And then also some actually online tools. We got a couple of things in mind, how to improve the ecosystem and help people actually to utilize Cosmos better. So yeah, that's basically what we have in mind. Mm-hmm. If you unmute yourself, we can even hear you then.
I'm not good at this streaming shit.
No, that's okay. It's always a user.
So, what do you see being the first educational document that you guys might put out? So, are these going to be like Medium documents?
Few things actually. One will be the Medium documents, and that will be driven by documentation or bits and pieces we have, because we got lots of nodes collected as mostly markdown documents for the installation. So first of all, we'll be clean this up, make this in a readable format, and publish as Medium or blog documents. So that is the platform will be a piece of a choice. And another thing, actually, we also want to release some videos, some educational videos where you will have actually the theoretical part. That's the architecture of the system. Let's take the Cosmovisor, for example. Cosmovisor is the process manager. Yeah, that's how it works. That's what it does. And then demo part, how to install this, let's say, and utilize this in your environment. And we want to release also multimedia actually content.
I look forward to that. Look forward to reading it. You mentioned platform called Block, is it? What is that one? You said Medium or Block?
Well,
Blog.
Blog.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
what I've got is I built the front end for ChainTools. You've seen some of the front end stuff I've did in the past. It's not incredibly gifted or anything, but you know, it's a way of giving yourself a task to try and build something on your own accord and learning properly. And we run this. I run Sanity CMS on the back end, and you literally just type in anything in a blog, and it will just render it straight to the sort of blog page that we've got on our website, which makes it easier because we don't want to be spending our time writing blogs. We've actually employed someone for like 6 weeks to try and help us out writing some good articles and getting a bit of because I speak Scottish at the end of the day, don't I? Right, and so sometimes I might come across as a bit fucking sweary or whatever, and so it's nice to get some professional in to do it properly for 6 weeks. And so yeah, it's easy for him just to go like that, and it just renders on the front end page. So we've got that on the go for blogs, but then I said to Simon, I think we should look at an academy style thing because So we've got that on the go for blogs, but then.
Yep.
Is that me speaking there? Wow, that's incredible. I just heard myself there.
I don't know what happened.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's when I say to Simon, obviously, like if we should do something like an academy, and sort of maybe do educational videos, and yeah, we just take it from there. Really, I suppose more ideas will come into. As the days go on, and different ideas, and obviously I think what we said as well, Simon, that we're going to get some community feedback and what they want from us as a validator as well, not just what we want to do, but listen to the communities and see what they would expect from us going forward. So,
it's good timing because there's never been more interest, I think, than what we see right now. And like if we were I know we'll talk about Sei here in a second, but Sei opened up like their incentivized testnet over the weekend, right? Friday or Saturday or something like that. And I think in the course of 8 to 12 hours, they had 1,200 or 1,300 pull requests with Gentex in it, right? So there's not 1,300 capable infrastructure operators in the cosmos today. So I think one of the things that you can add, one of the things I think would be important, and one thing we did when we wrote documentation for the Helium project when they were moving into validators, was trying to be very clear on setting expectations. Like, what are you getting into? It sounds great, but what are you getting into? Like, what does it really mean to be an infrastructure operator? What truly are the costs? What skill sets are you going to have? Because if you start missing blocks and you're trying to Google up how to do basic Linux shit, right? Like you're not only hurting yourself, but you're hurting a good possibility of taking funds away from people who are delegate to you and things like that, right? So we had a lot of expectation written just around that, just to say, hey, before you get into this, before you just jump head in, like make sure you know what you do. These are the skill sets that are important to be able to be a good operator. Everything from obviously Linux skills and cloud knowledge and monitoring and 20 other fucking things that you need to know to actually have a good chance in running high availability operations, right? Because it's 3/4 of those you see are people running WSL on a Windows laptop, right? So it's fine, and then I think there's a part of that also is if it comes down from 1,300 Gentex down to 250 of good operators, then you're also helping the team, because these teams can't go through 1,250s and try to figure out do they know what they're doing or not, right? And I thought the other thing interesting along that lines was to say, if you guys saw that, and when Sei did that, on there, they asked people to put a form in as well, and they had some like quiz questions. Did you guys see those? Where they put like, "Hey, if you saw this in the governance proposal, what does it do?" Or like there was like some questions to get over the hurdles, which I thought was actually pretty interesting. But I think then you have then people are taking those questions and popping them back on Discord and say, "Hey, if you have this governance proposal," But I think it's a step forward the right way, because I think I think it's challenging for everyone involved when you have that many people interested in something. And I get it. Like you want to grow, but there's a lot to it, right? So it'd be a good piece to. But the thing about this as well is like, how do you you don't want to take people away from opportunity, but you also want to be very clear on what comes along with that opportunity.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, Simon, you were testing out Sei Network recently, haven't you? How did you feel about it? What was, because you're quite critical when it comes to chains that are a bit of a shit show.
Well, basically, testnet became kind of especially incentivized, because now if you got testnet, the first question people ask usually is, "Oh, do we get any reward?" "Oh, there's no reward." "Oh," then they just walk away. You wouldn't get the 1,200 Gentexes if there would be no incentives. Yeah, I can guarantee you that. That's the first thing. So people are like, "Oh yeah, easy money. I go for this." Yeah, I answer the question in the forum. Then I get Gentex. Then I get validator. Oh yeah. Then faucet shit show starts. Yeah, so everyone drains the faucet to the max just to stay in the active set.
That's right. Yep.
That is another thing. And then of course restake, and that's it. And then we got yet another installation script for something, or yet another actually restacking script and stuff like that. So it became a little bit funny sometimes, to be fairly honest, from that perspective.
That's what put me off EveMoss at the start, when it was the faucet carry on at the beginning, and I fell away from it. Yeah, I was well in at the beginning with EveMoss, and then it was this big. You remember, Simon? It's just this absolute nightmare, and I thought, I'm done with this chain. Yeah. And now I'm like chasing Mars, trying to stay in the set now, but
right.
But it's not. I would like to see some. I mean, how does fucking 1,200 odd or whatever it is Gentex transactions come through for a testnet? I mean, what the fuck is happening?
Which also, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Highlander.
No, not at all.
That's actually along that same line, is because their documentation wasn't very clear in the Gentex structure, which is usually it's usually somewhat of a sign to like try to, they're not, people are just copying and pasting, right? Like, I don't think they even had Gentex command in there, which was also really surprising that there was that many that did it. But maybe it was on a previous repo or something. I missed it. But yeah, I agreed. It's like like I said, it doesn't really help the team that much either. And even on EveMoss, like they had started back off that, right? Then they ended up getting to a point where they did like custom invitations for the initial validator set because they want to make sure they launch, right? Because nothing worse than trying to get through 4 incentivized testnet rounds, and then at the end you can't get off the ground because you don't have the right set or whatever, right?
I think it's good on like Kujira, for instance. You seen a true Cosmos validator set shining right through there, because there was a few like people when I was on early doors, because I was sort of part of the Terra Fund proposal, and I was sort of, before all the proposal happened, I was talking to Kujira because I knew they were leaving Terra and stuff, but they told me long ago that we're going to launch our own chain, and we appreciate it. And I said, well, that's obviously fantastic, brilliant. And I said, well, I'll be always up for validating on it if you do launch your own chain. But seeing some of the familiar faces on there, and it's just like, you do know who's who when you've been a validator on certain chains, and that's that sort of filters out any of the shit, I suppose, straight away, doesn't it? If I'm talking to you, if I'm talking to Null or vice versa, Whisper, fucking Botscape, you know what I mean? All the good guys, sort of filters all that out straight away. But I find that astonishing, like 1,200 applicants for a mainnet. It's just like fucking madness.
That goes down to the incentive piece. Because now yesterday, I built validator in the testnet of the crowd control. There's no incentive, no nothing. There's barely like 30 validators joining the network out of 100. You got faucet, you got everything. You can just actually drain faucet a little bit even, stay inactive set, no problem. Nobody's interested because there is no incentive announced, right? And Sei says, oh, we got incentive. Everyone like, yeah, easy money, we go there. And that's what happens on the mass scale, I think.
Yep. No, you're muted again. I can read lips on that note, though.
I'm going to send him a stream deck.
So the funny thing with you're completely right, Simon. Like when it's an incentivized testnet, I'm not sure how they get the word out there. Maybe it's just, maybe there's groups for incentivized things or whatever. But when you have an incentivized one, there's just all these people show up, and tons of people don't even they can't even use Linux. It's you look at the chats in Discord, and it's like, how do I log into my node? Like, they're ridiculous. And there's thousands of Gentexes submitted with people who, a good percentage of which couldn't troubleshoot anything, or, that's not to say that they shouldn't be there. So
Right.
a testnet is a good place to learn, right? And I think that is the only place to learn. There are people who will raise nodes on mainnet who don't know how to use Linux just through copy pasting the instructions, right? Which is fine until you get a problem. And then the first problem you come across, you can't fix it, and then your node disappears.
This might be an idea for you guys to do. What you guys might think about doing is running a Highlander ChainTools, running a ChainTools network and use that as a test piece. So instead of like this, not incentivized, but use it as a test piece to be able to, maybe you don't get, maybe you run a Gentex every quarter or whatever else, but at that point you can run a faucet. People can spam the hell out of the faucet. You can put 500 validators in the set because who cares? You can do a bunch of things around that to allow people to get understanding of create validator, edit validator, be able to run a Gentex twice a year. Yeah. And you can't get kicked out. There's more than 100 spots because who gives a shit if it takes a 10-second block time? It doesn't really matter. You can have an Explorer set up. You can have people set up RPC nodes because there really is no like test net to be a validator. There's a test net for projects, right? But that their incentives are differently aligned than a validator's incentives, and that might be. I don't think that exists anywhere, right? I thought about that, but
no, it's a great idea.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool because then like all these restraints and issues about getting involved in the testnet, that all goes away. Then who gives a shit? You let people spam a faucet all day they want. Doesn't matter where you are in the set, you're not getting kicked out. Things like that.
You're right.
You can also do things like experimental like shit to cause problems, like have a missed signing window of like 2 blocks.
Get familiar with the unjail command,
and then slowly increase the block speed until you've got like half-second blocks.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, kind of sandbox environment, really. That is true, actually. Sandbox environment for the experimentation would be very good, though. That is actually true.
Call it so you think you're a validator, and then they just come and like just cause issues to fuck everyone up.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah,
that sounds brilliant. That's a great idea. Love it.
All right. I'll only take about 5%. Oh wait, it's not incentivized. Son of a shit.
Adam says experiment with max staking caps. That's a good idea.
There you go. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Very good.
Anything over 4%, you get instantly jailed. Everybody gets slashed.
So, we had planned to talk about governance. Now, I have raised some questions about the amount to submit a governance proposal with mixed results. A lot of opposition to the increase that I proposed, which is about I think $10,000 US. So
it's all right in Australia, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a lot over here. $10,000 US. You just have to sell your fucking house. But, so the thing is, in the last couple of days, there's been spam proposal from Bostrom, right? And basically, this proposal is them just marketing through the governance proposal system, where obviously people read the proposals, right? So it's just a way of getting information to people through a different medium, but it's not what governance is for, right? So obviously this has pissed off some people, and so I've talked to the core team at sJUNO, and we talked about increasing the minimum deposit for a governance proposal just to make it more unappealing to people to do spam proposals, so that when they get vetoed, they're losing more money rather than losing a small amount of money, right? So I guess the question then that other people are raising is, well, what's a deterrent amount of money that is also within reach of regular users with legitimate governance proposals, right? So the medium is that you don't want to lock out people to be able to make proposals, but you do want to make it enough that it is a disincentive where people don't want to lose sort of, an amount of money. So the funny flip side of that is, in this case, Bostrom's got money to lose. So, if you, for example, made the bar $10,000, that might be well within reach of Bostrom for their marketing budget, for example. But make a proposal out of reach to like a regular user, right? So I think some things that people may not be aware of, and this is purely because of lack of tooling at the moment and in the UI and UX space, is that people can actually contribute to the deposit amount for proposals to get them up to a voting stage, right? So I believe that the original intent of that was so that there could be a very high bar for proposals that then people could, if it's a worthwhile proposal, contribute to the minimum deposit to get it up for voting, right? So I don't think, in my opinion, and I don't know the original intent of the Cosmos, architects, but it appears to me as if that was the mechanism to stop people from making poorly conceived governance proposals. So, that's my opinion. Does anyone else, like Usurper, Highlander, Simon, do you guys have opinions on that, or could care less? Or, is it a burden to have to go and press the button that says no with veto? Like, does anyone care? Is there just going to be, if we leave it too low, will there just be so much spam that people just stop giving a fuck about governance?
I think straight away, I don't think governance is taken seriously enough, and out with validators and Cosmos. No one does give a shit about governance because everyone thinks as a staker or a delegator that, my one vote means nothing. That's what they think to themselves. And that's why that hardly of them don't even vote. But yeah, there's definitely things need to be changed in governance. Like, there's got to be something that has to be put in place. I always go back to what Sonny always said about categorizing your governance proposals in terms of, if it's something of a critical upgrade, it needs to be spoken on Commonwealth, or it needs to be a certain amount that you need to deposit for that specific tier of a governance proposal. If it's something minor or minute, then obviously a little bit less. But then you've got this, what you're talking about now, obviously, if it's someone trying to spam the fucking network or use it for a different sort of purpose other than, governance, or just using it for marketing, which is quite cheeky, then I think you should be not more than no with veto. It should be something more critical that happens to them in terms of banning from the network and some more further actions happening, because it's not going to stop, is it really? You can set the bar at 20 grand, mate, and they'll still fucking do it. You've got to push the step a wee bit further, I think, and eliminate them from the network, tombstone them. I don't know how you could do that in terms of code wise, but it's got to be serious, man, because if you want it to stop, you've got to do it properly.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, two things. Three things. One, I don't even understand what Bostrom is. I've never been able to figure out that website. Like, I don't understand the cyber AI thing. I've messed with it for like a couple hours. I don't get it. So number two, that chain should know better than do this bullshit. That's ridiculous. You're a member of the Cosmos. This is an early Cosmos chain. This is like original 6, right? And to be able to take that goodwill of being an early Cosmos chain member and then spam all these other chains with this horse shit is ridiculous. Like, that's, whether or not you can do it or not, like, know your place in this ecosystem. And like, what the hell is this? Like, and honestly, if we were running a chain and one of the 4 of us proposed this idea, the other 3 would instantly be like, dude, we're going to get like 1,000 no with vetoes here. It's going to get bombed out, which means they knew this was going to happen, which means it's just kind of like, oh, we'll just do it anyway because no bad press, right? Which is just an awful, like, what the hell? Like, that's just ridiculous, I think, for a Cosmos chain to be able to do. And I also agree with you. What Null said earlier around the original intent. I think it should go up. I was just on a different call where Jack was talking about this related to the original design, which was that it was meant to be a community funded deposit structure. but those UIs don't exist, right? It's CLI only right now. So he said that Strangelove has something in the works that they worked on in the past for that. And then also, like, it does need to be built, because I do think that the right thing in the future would be to allow something like a Commonwealth or something else to be able to have that in there, be able to see the proposal like in its form, and then allow people to either add deposits through that idea, right? I'm going to put 5 something towards this or something else. And then you could even, if you really wanted to, like, you could even find a way that maybe for specific proposal types, like text proposals away from software upgrade, where you could even mint a small amount on the depositors. So if somebody's putting that deposit in right now, there's no ROI on that, right? It's just getting your money back. But even if you did a small mint and I made 10% or maybe 5% or something similar to that based on that deposit, if it's a text proposal and it goes through, maybe you could do something to be able to have some incentive for people to actually read those and be able to deposit on and things like that. Like, those are different ideas, right? But I do think a way to be able to show that there is no barrier to be able to add a deposit to that. And then even if there's no incentive around that, to be at least to have individuals, understand what's in there and play a role in that. Because right now it's just kind of like these things show up and there's one depositor and right, you kind of roll on. So that idea of, I think, and the last thing is, I think raising the minimum until those UX pieces are gone, I think creates the wrong piece, because then it becomes only the whales, quote unquote, can deposit, right? It turns into a community exclusiveness, or it excludes the community versus includes them. And so to Simon's point around the community not giving a shit about votes, I think it actually I think it even makes it worse, because they can't, like, then if I don't have 10,000, whatever the hell it is, I can't even put a proposal in, right? Which I think then they're like, what the hell? Why can't I? Right.
Has anybody thought about has anybody thought about, like, the way the UK works in terms of, like, we've got all of our IBC enabled chains, right? So there's your constituents. Has anyone thought about a Cosmos Parliament in terms of all the heads of every chain going to the House of Commons and sort their shit out that way?
No. That doesn't work, man. Come on. It's supposed to be trustless. It's supposed to be permissionless.
Are we going backwards here, boys? Come on.
I don't think that's the way. Hey, guys, just on this, there is quite a lengthy thread from Multichain Maximalist, which is Jake. So because it's really long, and I think it touches on some good points, I didn't want to read the fucking thing, so I got Jake to come on. So
yeah, fucking love Jake, man.
He's going to drop in probably in like 5 or 10 minutes. So
great.
Yeah. Anyway, so it is a pretty difficult topic. I guess. Well, I mean, it is straightforward and it is difficult at the same time, right? It's straightforward in that governance should be a completely decentralized thing, but it's difficult in that you don't want to mistreat governance so much that you end up with people not caring about it. So, yeah, go.
I mean, look, it's all well. Everybody who knows in the cosmos, like us guys on this stream, right? We're not fucking idiots, right? That's enough for us to say, we're going to ignore that proposal. That's ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. But it's risky to the fact of maybe, 100,000 delegators who don't really know how it works. And they just, literally, this is what happens. They just, yes, and it fucking passes. Right. And it takes something like that for it to, like, actually be voted in. I think we need to go back to what me and Simon are saying about the educational part. It's just back to basics a little bit. Let the technically gifted gentlemen crack on in the network. And all I'm saying is that we, as a validator, are just going to step back and bridge the next wave and the newcomers into the ecosystem. Sort of go, this is the basics. This is how governance works in a decentralized environment in the Cosmos ecosystem. But also, people who are savvy to Cosmos will just look at these proposals and literally no with veto. But I think there should be more consequences for them for doing these sort of proposals, like not just no with veto and lose your funds. It should be like, you know, a lot more serious consequences.
Yeah.
One thing actually which could be added now, because now one depositor can actually put up all the money, and it doesn't matter if you actually set the high amount of money which needs to go to against the proposal. Just set up the number of wallets which needs to contribute. Of course, that will put additional hassle. Then they can spread actually the amount, but then you got at least this additional hassle they have to go through to submit a proposal. Don't allow only single proposal. That's supposed to be decentralized. We might require a minimum of, let's say, 100 wallets to actually contribute towards the proposal before it goes for the voting, deposit period. And then not only one person can do that. Raising the amount of money, it will just push away, like you said, guys, before, smaller people who might have a good ideas from even submitting it. They say, oh, I will never actually convince people to put up money. Nobody knows me or whatever. It's just screwed up from the beginning, though it might cause this type of effect.
So just playing devil's advocate here, right? So I can see some problems with that, but I can also see some solutions that other people might hate. So
I have bad news and bad news.
Yeah. So my problem with that is that it's quite easy to just civil wallets on Cosmos chains, right? You just open up some more wallets. You could make 500 with a bot and put 0.0. Like you would have to have a minimum balance on those wallets or a minimum history or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But also like the gatekeepers, well, not the gatekeepers, how would you, I guess you could call it the gatekeeper to the network and the network security, right? The most interested parties in a network are probably the validators, right? So maybe if you're looking for like seconding proposals, like so if someone makes a proposal and then, you know, you're looking for community and network support for the proposal, then maybe, you know, it needs to be seconded by a couple of validators or something like that to sort of verify it's a legit. Yeah. But I can see people absolutely fucking hating that because the validators already have a fair amount of control in terms of voting in governance. So
now, one thing actually with this type of controlling, it contradicts the idea of the environment. That's supposed to be permissionless, trustless. Everyone can submit something. So I think it's more actually educational job on our side as a validators to explain to people how that works. And if someone delegates to me, for example, should be able to ping me on social media saying, hey, what this proposal is about. Explain this to me and tell me what we're supposed to do with this, what the consequences are. And then that's supposed to be work done on that level. We shouldn't go into controlling piece of it because that will get actually into so many details that it really will get messy. And there'll be always fight between the people. It will cause only basically the just unnecessary, really angry people around, I guess.
Yeah. That other idea, though, was not it's an interesting idea. The idea that maybe only a validator can propose. Hear me out. Maybe only a validator can propose. So that's a community type of thing between delegates and a validator. And then with that, get rid of the idea that validators vote non-voting shares. So the validators only vote their own personal wallets. Non-voting shares do not come along with that. Only community votes and validator personal wallets, quote unquote, or, you know, self-stake wallets type of things are in the quorum, but a proposal has to go through a validator. So you kind of have there's a bit of a check and balance there in that type of structure. That's just another idea. But there's it seems like there's a good number of ways to kind of figure it out. I think it's just a matter of kind of laying out some of the pros and cons type of idea.
There's so many variables that you could go down, isn't there? It's, you know, but I like the sound of that.
Yeah. No, you're on mute.
Just trying to think
Please.
of any other.
The trifecta.
It's end user issue.
Still at it.
I'm letting you go.
I'm going to have a
There you
whiskey
go.
while he has a think. There we go.
Drink break.
I was actually talking to myself.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
Again?
My bad. I didn't mean to call you out.
So Soy2 Studio, he's actually been quite, he's been saying a few things on Twitter about this as well. So I didn't even read this before I put it. Anything that further empowers is about, anything that further empowers validators is a bad idea. We just spoke about how most validators are useless and can't even use Linux. Good point.
Truth.
Yeah,
love
but
most validators that are
we'll
in
also
To be fair, my idea was also removing empowerment of validators. So it was both sides. Like I was trying to work on both sides, but I understand that.
That is true.
So, like, yeah, it is a pretty nuanced subject, I suppose. And to be fair, like the validator community may have a completely different view than the user community, right? So there's
Totally.
two sides to the coin. Well, two perspectives to the issue, right? So
yeah,
I think that's, as a validator community, is something that we overlook sometimes, is that there's two perspectives to most of these issues, right? And I think a lot of us do try to see it from a user perspective, but may be clouded by our validator perspective, in that we tend to do what we think is just the best outcome for network and network security, right? Whereas, the users look at it from a perspective of usability and being able to use the features of a network and be able to participate in the network. Whereas, like, validators are participants already, right? There's no matter what the situation is, we're going to have some sort of influence and participation in the network. Whereas some decisions that we might think are right for the network might reduce the amount of participation that a user can have. So there is two perspectives to every situation that we come up with this proof of stake thing that we're all trying to work our way through. And those two different perspectives can be very different. And it's our job as validators to try to see both of those perspectives and do what's best as a whole, not just what we think is best for the network. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, it's back to this categorizing the severity of the proposal. There's so many variables to take into account, but if you start at categorizing severity of, like, if it's I keep going back to the famous sJUNO prop, that sort of severity would had to have, how would you have dealt with it looking at it now, pre that prop going up? You'd have done it a lot differently. Like, maybe you wouldn't have, but it's just, I think when you see something that needs to be, validators have got to look at the code here. You've got to realize what you're upgrading, or don't fucking vote because you don't know what you're doing. We all get caught with our asses up our fucking ass. Our finger up our ass earlier on with that prop. It went to a wrong address, and it's like, these things need to be seriously looked at now, because we were caught out hands up. It's something we need to look into in terms of categorizing what kind of proposal it is. If it's something like reduce the blocks time or something different, then I just think if it's something of serious severity, then it needs to go through specific validators who have got to okay it, or before it goes on chain, basically.
So Jake has arrived.
Yo, what's up, guys?
Hey, what's happening?
Oh,
You
man,
do,
that
Jake.
is a good sounding
That is
man.
a beta 57, man.
Yeah, it is.
That's nice.
Nice.
Tonight on Sweet Sounds by Meow.
It's like Kamal on the man. That is
Smooth
nice.
jazz.
I like that.
Nice one.
Guys.
So
That's the sort of-
I just put the hard word on Meow there. I said we're coming to the end of this topic, man. You coming or not? You might not even have seen that in the chat.
Oh, did I miss it? You guys already talked about it?
No. So I just said we're getting towards the end of this topic, man. Are you coming or not? So
right, cool.
So anyway, what we're talking about here, Meow, is the governance issues that are cropping up with the low bar for the proposal and the deposit for a proposal. And we've talked a little bit about, various issues with that. We've thrown some ideas back and forth, but I saw that you did have quite a big thread on Twitter on this very subject. And I thought that you may like the opportunity to touch on some of the points that you've raised there on Twitter and your possible remedies. So we've talked about a couple of different things we've talked about is one, to mitigate raising the bar for a deposit. So, for example, $10,000 or $3,000 or $7,000 or whatever it might be, right? Just to try and provide a disincentive for people to raise spam proposals. We've also talked about there could be different mechanisms for, seconding proposals by other people in the community or validators. That sort of segued a little bit onto removing voting power from validators, but requiring them to second a proposal for it to become live, etc. Various things like this, all just talking off the cuff. And some ideas are probably very bad and some ideas might have some merit. I'm not advocating for any of them, just raising them.
Yeah, totally. That's what we got to do. Just got to throw some ideas out there, see what sticks.
Exactly.
Right.
So one thing I think we can all agree on, though, is that, the community education on this matter is probably not good. And the UX UI for this, for governance as a whole, is not good. So I thought that might be some things that you touched on in that thread, which I haven't been able to read because I've been trying to pay attention to the stream here. So did you want to talk about a few things on this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, going on the whole UI UX thing, it sucks for the Cosmos governance SDK. I think that actually part of the challenge, I noticed a lot of people were like, we're going to raise the proposal deposit. And then a lot of people are like, wait, that means poor people won't be able to vote. Well, the deposit is already 500 sJUNO. So what happens if you have one sJUNO? I think most people don't actually realize that you don't have to pay the full deposit when you make a proposal. You only need one sJUNO. You can have multiple people contribute to a proposal deposit. That's how it is today.
Right.
But because the UX around all this is so bad, and I think some of the education around this could be a lot better, I think most people don't even realize. I think they think the person who makes the proposal has to pay the full deposit. But in actuality, they only have to pay one sJUNO, and as many people as possible can come together and pay the proposal deposit. So
$10,000 becomes hardly anything when you've got loads of people contributing to make the proposal happen anyway. So this is the point.
Well, you only need 100 people to contribute $100, and you're there. And if you've got if it's any, and there's a lot of users, like if there's any kind of good support for your proposal,
my point is, it's like raising it to $10,000 ain't going to stop the Bostrom sort of thing happening. Then is it back to my point where it's got to be more of a severity?
But $100,000 wouldn't it?
I honestly think a chain that's as big as sJUNO, we're still over $100 million market cap. I think $100,000 is fine. And the whole expectation is that your proposal has to be good enough that you can convince other people to deposit on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly great. And I think that will result in better proposals because you're forced to collaborate. You're forced to go out and convince other people that, hey, this proposal is so important. I want you to put your money on the line.
Jake,
I think
other than a good feeling about that, though, there's no return on that, right? Like anybody who's sitting there looking at it, say, I have risk, there's no reward. Have you guys, would it be possible for, if it is at that number, and that's like a significant number, like $100,000 USD, that if I'm part of the member of the community and I think this is a valuable thing, why wouldn't we pull and make that a little bit of a mint where I have a little bit of return on that? Like say it's 5% or say it's 1%, you know what I mean? Something like that.
This is actually something I really want to work on with DAO as a place to experiment with this.
Yeah.
I'm kind of I think we have to think about what are the smallest changes we can make that will improve the current situation, but don't require that much work. And then maybe where do we want to get long-term?
It's the story of my life.
So I think we need to be really careful about like incentives like that for like paying people to like, if their proposal is successful, because that could also incentivize other weird things that we don't want.
It could. Yeah.
But I actually am really excited about that. In fact, we have in DAO, we're working on some of the first incentivized voting contracts. So I think that's a really exciting design space. What I think would be the easiest thing to do is shoot for another number like 10, 20, maybe even 50,000. That's doable. I think 10,000 is actually a good number. It's high enough. I really also put out in my Twitter thread, there's 2 changes I want to make to the Cosmos SDK governance module. I'll throw them past you guys. I think that if a proposal is in the deposit period, so when you submit a proposal, it's in the deposit period and it's not live for voting on chain until it's past the deposit period.
Right.
I think while it's in the deposit period, you should be able to edit it or remove it. So let's say I put the proposal up and then I'm like, oh shit, there's a typo. I can remove the proposal and then put up the correct version.
Yeah.
And when I remove or edit proposal, that should refund all like current, deposits. Like we don't, if the proposal text changes at all, everyone should be refunded for their deposit. It's like we're starting over again.
Yeah, definitely, Jake.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of like great because that kind of creates like, we've been talking a little bit about sort of what does a drafting process for a proposal look like?
Yeah.
You put your proposal up for deposit, you convince everyone it's a good idea to deposit on it, and then it goes up for voting. And that's how we're filtering for quality right there. We want to make sure that the deposit is high enough so that there's some risk so that people are not going to write spam proposals or that they're just going to take the time to write quality proposals.
Right. And I think, and you would do a refund on the edit, right? Because you wouldn't want some, So if there's any change to it, then it automatically gets refunded out.
So what if I deposit on your proposal and then you change the one thing I liked about it,
Yeah, I was just checking. But yeah, that would be awesome. Because I think there's it's a scary thing. I've done a few of them, but you put that proposal button in, you're like, oh shit. Like I gotta make sure this is 100% correct, right?
And then you're just stuck there. And then even once it's in the deposit period, you could be like, oh no, I'm going to put up this other proposal. I made a really bad mistake. Don't deposit on it. And someone goes and deposits on it. Now it's live on chain for a vote.
And people are just hitting yes, right? Yeah, exactly.
Like I really want to, I think the easiest thing we can do is turn that deposit period into almost like a drafting period as well. Yeah. And it's like that deposit can be set high enough so that is a nice threshold for when a proposal is ready.
And maybe you can even do memos in the deposit so you could actually have some comments and show those visible. Like you can make it where I want to edit or maybe have suggestions or something else and get that off of Commonwealth and make it part of that depositing period, right? Because Commonwealth it's okay, like it's with a third party, it's like a third party tool, right? But could we actually use on chain and could we use maybe small deposits in there to say have edits or something similar to that? You know what I mean? Like something like that, because it'd be nice to not rely on Commonwealth. I think it's
a longer term thing I think we also need like full on UI, like DAO UI around on-chain governance. It's not even easy to make a proposal.
Right.
Like you have to know how to use the command line and you have to edit JSON. And even when you're editing the JSON, it doesn't support like normal markdown. You have to have like all the /n tabs, for white space. And it's a nightmare to test all that stuff. Like,
the only way to test that is to put it like testnet proposals, right?
Yeah, post it somewhere else. That's what I've done. Yeah, for sure.
So
I've been using Sanity CMS, and we've been rendering back end stuff that's like coded in Grok, and it just sort of like queries, that kind of JSON format. But I wonder if there's something you could build with Cosm.js. It just sort of like renders whatever you're editing or whatever you're commenting on a proposal on chain, renders it to a UI and just sort of gives you the on chain draft proposal so users can actually see what's happening. Then it's like sort of eliminates the Commonwealth side of things. It just sort of goes, like you're saying, Jake, this is a step before it goes on to like on-chain governance proposal. It's like the draft proposal. Is it going to be rubbished off, or is it going to be taken seriously? You know, something like a good UI experience. I'm sort of liking what you're saying with that. I think it's important. Who goes on Commonwealth, really? Let's be honest, because I've not got enough time of day to be on Commonwealth sifting through all these chats about governance, you know, so.
I do. It's just like I use like 9 different ledgers, so signing in and being like a rhino on each one of those is such a pain in the ass that I just like get annoyed at that. But yeah, we tried to.
So sorry, Jake, just what you were saying before. So changes to the Cosmos SDK. One thing that I would like to see in there as well is, and I don't think it already exists, is the verification of param change proposals. Like it's a little bit off topic, but so that param change proposals don't get up if they don't actually change a parameter that's in the network, if that makes sense. So because I believe the way it is now, you can submit a param change proposal that tries to change a parameter that doesn't exist, right?
I've not tried that, but if that's possible, that should definitely be fixed.
Well, I know that every time I do a param change proposal, I painstakingly make sure that it's correct, because I believe that it would be quite easy just to submit one that does nothing, because I think it will just accept any JSON that's got a change key in it, and the things that come after the change key, I don't know that they're verified according to the network, because not all networks support all modules in the SDK as well. So
yeah, there's a lot that needs to be fixed and improved, and there's a ton of work to do on like sort of the UI for all the governance stuff. Like with data, we're trying to do as much as possible. We actually have like on-chain discussion for proposals and a drafting process that's coming. But we're not doing native SDK governance yet. Maybe we'll get to that at some point. Yeah.
So I think we've probably exhausted this topic for what we'd want to talk about today, and we are probably going to start moving on to a bit of news, etc. Do you think, Usurper? Meow, thanks for coming, and you are more than welcome to stay and talk about the rest of the shit we're going to talk about if you want.
I would love to, but I'll be back like next week or so.
Yeah,
I have to go do some things, but I really wanted to come in and talk a little bit about, just the proposal deposit, like how we can educate more people on this, and how we can make better UX around this. And really, I think if we can just get like the ability to edit and delete proposals while they're in the deposit status period, I think that'd be a very simple thing we could do that would have a very large effect.
Yeah.
So
awesome, man. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. And actually, I do want to get you back soon to talk about DAO.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely do that.
Well, that's because that's going to be coming out soon, right?
It's going to be coming out like probably in the next couple weeks.
Well, perfect.
Or sooner.
Let's organize it, man.
Awesome.
All right, sounds great.
Thanks, Jake.
Right.
Later, guys.
See you, man.
See you, mate.
See you, Jake.
Righto. So,
all right.
Usurper.
Yeah.
News. The news.
The news. Well, I think we wanted to have a couple minutes to talk about some recent testnet launches. It's been a little bit of a busy time here in the crypto price doldrums.
The bear market is the time to build, right?
The red candle times. Yeah. So we talked a little bit around Sei before. So Sei had a DevNet 1, I think that was happening the last few months. Or maybe it was called Test. I forget what the actual names are. I'm not going to call chain names because I don't have it in front of me. They just relaunched DevNet due to, I think there's just the validator set was a little bit out of whack. And so they relaunched DevNet. And then obviously we just talked about the number of kind of groups that are trying to get into this incentivized testnet. Sei team's doing a really good job of it hasn't happened yet, but I think as of Friday, they said they're going to rotate the validator set. So I don't really have any, I'm not sure how that's exactly going to happen. I assume that's through foundation delegations and just applying big chunks towards validator sets and things like that. I'm not sure if some of those will stick around. We're in that list, which is nice to be a part of Sei, although we're struggling with blocks, which we'll talk about here in a second, why. But they're going to rotate the validator set around as more people come online, and a lot are inactive and those types of things, which is really cool. They're going to start launching and doing a little bit more in terms of the actual testing aspect of the testnet, and so there's some structure around that and some goals and those types of things, which I could put a link to the Notion site from the Sei team that has a lot of good information about what that's going to be. And I think the one thing interesting that is different, I believe, between DevNet and test, I could be wrong, but I think DevNet's running like 1.5 second blocks. And when testnet started, at least, I think their goal is 250 millisecond blocks, I think is what the goal is. Some raised eyebrows. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is in the I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's actually set.
They're about 60 seconds at the moment, right?
60. Say what?
I mean, 60. Sorry, they're about
what? Right now, actually, I can tell you exactly. Well, right now,
0.6 of a second. Sorry.
Yeah, right now. Yeah. Well, actually, right now, the last 24 hours on test. Am I in test or dev? I'm in testnet. It's been actually just about a second, so it's up to a second, which I'm guessing is just based on the number of validators, which has now grown to 50. So maybe it's kind of come up a little bit. So, which we're not missing as bad now. We were missing actually pretty decent when it was at 250 milliseconds, because we had I think it was averaging a half a second a block. Which there's a lot of shit going on there for half a second a block. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I think we're doing all right there. I don't think I've missed that many blocks on that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure why this is a testnet box. It doesn't have that many stones to it, but still, we usually don't miss blocks. So it's always a little bit more frustrating when you do that, even if it is testnet. And then from the let me dig up a quote from the Sei team. And Highlander, are you guys running nodes here?
In Sei,
Simon's having a Sei node on the go at the moment. Yes.
Well, yeah, but I didn't actually create a validator from that. So.
Oh, not yet.
So
okay.
we're just having not yet. Cool.
No.
Yeah, we're.
So these guys have been. So just a bit of background on the. So there were 1,300 odd Gentex submissions, right? Mm-hmm. Don't know how many of those are legit, but the team has been interviewing validator teams for quite some time. So I do believe they have vetted out a lot of people who are legit validators and other people who are there for the incentivization part of it. That said, I don't think that they're limiting the testnet to to limit the amount of people who are going to get rewards out of the incentivization. But I think they are limiting the amount of people who are going to be in the active set, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, I think it might be a little bit similar, and I'm not sure. I think it might be a little bit similar to Defund, where Defund said, you don't have to be in the active set to receive incentivization for running the incentivized testnet, right? So it's kind of to, give everyone a chance to get some rewards there and stop people from just milking the shit out of the faucet when it's there for people to get a small amount of tokens so that they can play around with the dApps that are attached to these networks, right? Because, it's not just a network. You don't just want to try and spew out as many blocks as you can with no transactions in it. They've got their own modules attached to it and their own dApps that they're trying to test, which is why they're running a testnet. So, yeah, I mean, there is some sort of vetting that's going on, but there's also other method to the madness in there. So
what is it? I've not looked into Sei Network much of all. Is this the same? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this anything to do with the chap who created Sentinel? Is it the same sort of? Yeah. Is that? I seen that interview and it seemed pretty interesting. So okay.
Yeah, they're trying to build an order book and those types of things.
Yeah.
So from PSU in the validator chat, he said, because I was like, I'm like, this thing's moving pretty quick.
Yeah. I seen that interview and I thought, fucking hell, right? So he's just like come out with this straight away. That's interesting. So, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. He said we actually want to miss some amount of blocks, less than 33% of all blocks, since that's an indicator that we're pushing the system. If we're not, that means there's room for performance. I wouldn't worry too much about missed blocks unless it's more than the threshold.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty interesting. Like, it's a just different mindset, right? Because I think, missed blocks give me start shaking and stuff, right? So the idea that we're starting to drop blocks is because of something that's like that. So, but again, looking down that list, there's a good amount of people missing blocks. I'm dropping 40 an hour or 50 an hour. But again, that's at half-second blocks what it was. There's a lot more blocks per hour than a typical 6-second type structure. So, but yeah. So anyway, that's off to the races. I don't think any of the testnet stuff has really started yet, although I haven't really checked in today. But yeah, that's pretty cool. That's moving. It's exciting. Kind of see another order book structure come up.
So I think they have actually started testing the dApps in some fashion because there's like random people doing stuff there's a Medium article about tasks, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
There is Notional. It's I'll put it in the links, but yeah, it's a Notion site, I think, with the tasks in it.
Yeah.
No,
okay. So I think we're doing all right there in terms of missed blocks. But so interestingly, we are using a remote signer as well. So I think some other people were having issues with the remote signer, and that's probably due to latency with such a fast block time. So I think we might just be lucky that we have low latency to our signers. So, but I actually, I had a problem because of the way Sei, is it Sei or Sei? Anyway,
I think it is Sei. Right.
So
say. What do you say?
So we all did Gentexes, right? And then they launched the network without most of those Gentexes, but then sent some token to the people who they want, like to some of those people with Gentexes to get them to start a validator, right? Now, I was using a remote signer, and I already had the remote signer connected to my node, so it was already producing blocks, right? It just wasn't producing blocks as a validator. Now, the funny thing was, I had assumed because of in the config that you actually point your validator node, your Sentry node away from the local priv-validator key, right? And sorry to everyone who's watching this who's doesn't speak validator speak, right? But you have a local key, and even if it's not the validator key, the program will generate a dummy key that just sits on the validator node, no matter whether it's used or not, or required or not. It'll still just make a dummy one if one doesn't exist, right? So, but I had thought because my remote signer was connected and was telling it my pub key, obviously, that when I did the create validator command, that it would use the remote signer's key instead of the friggin' local dummy key, right? I was fucking wrong. So I immediately, as soon as I created my validator, it was missing blocks because it had created the validator with the local key instead of the fucking remote signer key. So I had to go and quickly, and I didn't know what the signing window was either. So I was just like panic station. And so I had to like move the key over to my signer and redo all my signer config to use that key. So that was a scramble. I think I missed, and with half-second blocks, I missed quite a few blocks in a very short amount of time. But I think at the moment it's just fine. So that's my story on Sei.
I'm glad you figured it out. That's actually not a quite obvious thing. I guess you have to start getting into understanding, right? Because unless you knew that, like if you don't understand how that works, and obviously like, oh shit, I created it this way. But just seeing that thing miss, it's not obvious that that's the wrong key in there. All right, or that you created with the Gentex with their own key.
No, but luckily that was my first assumption that that's what had happened, because I was kind of thinking about it when I actually made the it did cross my mind. Yeah, it just the assumption I made on that topic in my mind was that it would use the one from the signer.
Sure.
And then I didn't even check that I was making the blocks initially. I was looking at, so I looked down the validator list to see actually if we were in the list because of the amount that we staked, right?
Right.
And then I saw my uptime wasn't 100%, and I was like, oh shit, what's going on here? And then I went in there and was just printing red blocks, and I'm like, oh shit. And then fixed it. So that was a couple of minutes later, but anyway, it was interesting, and it's actually, I'm glad that it happened because it's good to know.
Yeah.
Because then I won't do that on a main net. So
yeah,
it's not a good look to, as soon as you start a validator, start missing blocks. And the funny thing is that if you did that on a main net, that you wouldn't automatically be in the active set, right? You wouldn't even know, because when you're in the inactive set, you're not signing blocks. Right. You don't know whether you're signing blocks or not. Or whether you have the ability, like whether you're using the right key or not, right, until you're in the active set. And then so you could go and crowdsource delegations, get on and go to Twitter and get people to delegate to you, right, and get promoted to the active set.
Yeah.
And immediately be missing blocks. And if that happens while you're sleeping or something like that, you have to get up and fix it, or you don't know and you get jailed. It's not a good look.
not good out of the gate, not a good look.
No, so it's good to know that doesn't work. Yeah.
Yep. I'm starting to move all my Gentex locally. Like I don't do them on the actual nodes anymore. Like I always do it locally and those commands locally, just because then at least, especially for mainnet type things, or even if it's a crate validator, just because then I have the key local, and then or at least for Gentex, at least then I know at least I have the key local, and then I know I'm going to save it off and those types of things. Where otherwise I get worried about I'm going to somehow save the wrong key or some other crap associated to that.
So I should actually clarify, because I got the pub key from the command, say tendamint show node ID, show node pub key or whatever, show node key or whatever the command is, right? But I did that on the validator.
Yeah.
So even if I did that on that Sentry node, right? So even if I did that on that node and then did the command locally, I'd still have the wrong key.
Right.
I just do it on testnet nodes because it's easier. So I would have to go basically to the priv validator key file and just pull the key out of the file. It's not trivial to do. It's just knowing that you have to do it that way instead of the other way, because the default command that is in documentation mostly is to use that tendamint module command that will give you the pub key on your node, right? But it just gets it from that local file, not the signer that's connected to it. So I actually think that should change. I think that someone should change that so that it produces the pub key for the key that's being used to produce blocks, not the one that just happens to be on the node. Because I wouldn't mind suspecting that had you changed the home directory, but that other home directory existed, that it would probably pull the pub key from that default home directory, probably unless you specified a home directory with the home flag. So the other thing is, like, there's lots of these built-in, like, hard-coded defaults in the Cosmos SDK. So if you do a Gentex, right, it doesn't matter what ports you have set in your config file.
Right.
It'll produce a memo in the Gentex that says the default port, and you can't change it, because if you try to change it, it will invalidate the signature on the Gentex. So you're producing the wrong information to the other participants. So if people pull that out and want to use that as a peer, it'll be the wrong peer, and it won't dial to that peer. That's right. I think there might be some flags that you can actually do in a Gentex, certainly for your IP, but I'm not sure about the. I don't think there's one for the port.
That's all right. I didn't know that. Sure. I always do the same thing with we run machines that have both a private NIC and a public NIC, and so it always defaults to the private. So all those Gentex always have like a a non-routable Bogon IP address on there, and I'd like to be able to change that. Actually, I'd actually be able to change it with the DNS name for the node, because at some point I'd like to be able to put that in there so that people can look at those peers too. Otherwise, so I have seen that actually a couple of times where I have seen DNS names in there. So there must be a way to be able to change that, huh?
Yeah, I think the IP, I'm pretty sure you can specify with a flag, but I'm not sure about the port.
Yeah.
So anyway, in other news,
the other one we were going to talk about, the other one coming this week is defund. So, Kujira, let's come back to Kujira, because that's a longer conversation. Another one coming this week is defund. So defund had their last chain. It just paused, I think, over the weekend or something. Defund, if you guys are familiar with it, is the idea of like building ETF funds of coins within Cosmos and maybe outside the Cosmos, which is a pretty cool idea. So I ran into them at Consensus, which was really great to meet. It's always nice to be able to meet people that you kind of talk to on Discord. So I ran to them, and so I know there's a new testnet /devnet coming up here. Hopefully going to launch this week. Actually, I haven't seen any information yet. It might be starting up maybe this weekend or early next week, something similar to that. So that's coming back. There was an issue with the last binary that was, I forget what it was doing. It wasn't either clearing out old data or doing something, because basically it was growing the folders like crazy. And so I think they made some big changes to that, because a lot of people are getting jailed out, myself included. Actually, it ran out of space at like a terabyte. I'm done. Because it really was no way to state sync it and other types of things. And so I knew it was ending anyway. So I was like, okay. But that's coming back next week, or maybe later this week. So that's pretty exciting as well. And then, go ahead.
Just with that one you said, so what was I going to say? So they had planned to halt that network, right? And I think it was a couple of days out, and then there were enough nodes that couldn't keep up that it halted anyway. I think
that's what happened. I was asking John. I'm like, if you're halting, I'm like, you keeping anything here? He's like, no. And so like I think they're going to do a new Genesis off the same maybe validator set or something similar. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen here. I was like, just kill it.
Export the state across.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm like, just kill it. I'm like, just stop it. Like, I'm like, just call a halt. Just halt it, and like, we don't need to do a nice. Who cares? Like, just stop it. It's a testnet.
So I believe the new defund testnet is going to be it's going to have some things improved in terms of storage. But also they're going to have increased functionality with the ETF, which will be more towards like a closer anagram to what they're going to be launching with, I believe. So I'm not sure. I don't know if it's incentivized or not, but it'll certainly be like a good testing ground for the launch version probably of defund. So
yeah. I'm excited. Like, it's a good team, and glad that this has been around for a little bit. So I'm glad they're making some progress here. I don't think it's incentivized. I think it's just a testnet.
Okay.
So Kuji, yeah, please.
Has anyone got on with like Quicksilver network yet?
No, not me.
No.
I ran nodes for the last testnet. I think this last one I kind of gave up on because it had that same flavor of. Right? Like floor is lava, and how much time am I going to put in this to try to stay in this structure? So I think I gave up on the last one. And I think there's another one coming too, isn't there, Highlander?
There's another, I'm not sure about another testnet Quicksilver, but what's the name again? Celestius. I've got that right there. Celestia.
Mm-hmm.
Them and all, something else that should be looking at. But it's that many networks you're like, try to keep up. It's ridiculous.
It is.
Simon, I think we need to go, and I think we need to double up us. Never mind just me and you doubling up.
Is that right? You got to do it again. Exactly.
Fucking madness.
I think it's just starting.
Oh,
I think it's just the very beginning of it. Like, I think that's why. I mean, honestly, going back to your training thing, it's. Like it's a good time because I think the number of chains are going to grow here, and there's going to be I think other than Polkachu, who will clearly will be on every single chain through the amazing aspect of DevOps.
What's he got like? Is he got like 5 times Polkachu's merged into one guy or something? Because the work he puts out is like,
I know.
He's either cloning himself or very good at fucking automation, and I think it's the latter.
I think he has a button that's called the DFA button. It's do fuck all button, and you press it, and it fucking spins a chain. Spins a chain, but it also gives you state sync snapshots, fucking live peers, everything.
I know.
One button. It's amazing. I love Polkachu, man. He's awesome. Really
I give him
good,
shit.
Man.
We were talking about seeds one day, and like I forget what we were talking about. It was something like because that whole thing that came out around bad persistent peers. If you have because people are putting like 800 fucking persistent peers in their peer book, and then like the nodes are sitting there dialing shitty, dead node over and over and over, and people are realizing they're missing blocks because this thing is spending so much time on bad persistent peer structures. I'm like, I've always been an advocate of like, get rid of this shit. Like, just put a good seed in there. But some nodes don't, like some chains don't run seeds. And then he and I were talking about this, and then like 8 minutes later, this massive seed service was launched. There's like a website with like all these seeds, and there's like 75 seed nodes. I was like, what? I was like, it's like yeah, I ran tender seed, and here we go.
It's good. Well, like chain registries, something that's stuff like that Tom built, or is it Tom that created chain registry? Is it? He's a big part of it anyway. Like, anyway, that repo chain registry, just all the Cosmos stuff you need, the RPCs, the seeds, the peers.
That was
thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what you need to, I never realised that until I met him in London when I was one at when I went to one of Frey's Cosmos Interchain education things, which is brilliant, by the way. Yeah, good day. I nearly missed my train back home, actually. It was hilarious. That's a nice story. Sorry about that.
The Frey loves the train too.
He does.
The
other thing that Noel, do you want to talk about Kujira a little bit?
Well, we've got Kujira and we've got Secret to talk about yet, and we're starting to run out of time. So maybe we'll touch on. Let's go with Kujira. So Kujira was a project that has moved over to their own chain from Terra, I believe they were working on in the first place. So that's where their existing token was, and they're migrating it over to their own chain. So firstly, shout out to the devs at Kujira, because from day one, they had pretty nice apps and UX UI experience. So congratulations to them for that. But the reason I wanted to raise Kuji was their rewards model, which is not the same as basically all of the other Cosmos chains out there, right? So they don't have inflation. Their model is what all the other models aim to do in the future, I believe, but they do it straight out of the gate. So for those who don't know, Kujira is a decentralized exchange that uses an order book instead of automated market maker like the rest of the decentralized exchanges or the common decentralized exchange that we see now. So basically what they're proposing with this network is that the people who are staking to validators are rewarded by a share of the fees from trading only. So there are no other mechanisms to provide rewards to the delegators. So these are produced by when someone makes a transaction, whether it's to put an order or to take an order or using any of the functionality on the decentralized exchange, it comes along with a fee, right? So there's a maker and a taker fee. And so these are in different denominations as well. It's not necessarily just Kuji. So there's fees that are collected in, I think, USDC, and I think they're adding, I don't know, JUNO and whatever other.
It's got everything.
Yeah.
So you've got everything on it.
And they implemented, I think they're like probably the first ones other than Omniflix who have implemented in their UI having fees in denominations other than their native token. So I know, for example, that many of the validators on sJUNO accept fees in USD. Atom. Sorry, they accept fees in Atom, and that's in the standard documentation, but it's not, as far as I know, implemented in a UI anywhere. So that is probably a CLI only feature for people who use the command line to make transactions, but it does exist there. But I think at the moment, Kuji are doing it pretty well from that point of view. So basically anyone who's delegating to a validator, as time goes by, they'll just see all these different IBC coins appear in their wallets or appear as rewards, and then they can collect those to their wallets and use them, transfer them wherever they want as normal IBC coins. So absolute nightmare for your tax, but still a good feature in terms of being able to use the functionality of the network, especially when you don't already have native Kuji to use as a fee. So you can send across your Atom and you can make transactions immediately with Atom without having to have any native Kuji.
What I do like about it is the fact that there's no need for liquidity pools. It was designed, Finn was designed on that one thing of order book. It's something different that you see on the Cosmos. I'm glad that they've come and built on the SDK, obviously. But, my first ever relayer now is relaying sJUNO and Kujira with the help of Simon, obviously. So it's nice to be part of the relayer crew now. But yeah, interesting project. Being a bear market, it's hard to see the volume coming in. Bear market times, it's hard to tell you what's going to happen with some projects. But Hans is one of the best CW devs I've seen, man. He's unbelievable what he can do, this guy. So we've got a lot of promising things that will happen with Kujira, no doubt, man.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to it. Although I don't know, the staking there is another bloody enigma.
No, to be honest, you can withdraw rewards and redelegate on most chains in Cosmos, and you can have yourself a nice little stack to redelegate. But Kujira is just completely different, man. You need to know for a start how to operate with IBC transfers to basically execute the swap code to transfer all these other rewards back to Kujira to redelegate to yourself. I mean, if you don't know all that, then you're going to sit there and create a war chest of all these other rewards within your validator. And yeah, it's slightly different, I must admit. But yeah, I don't think there's enough fees being generated at the moment for you to start seeing the rewards, if that makes sense. But
yeah,
I think it'll come, man. It'll come.
It's only been running for like a couple of weeks. So, as awareness gets around and as the token gets a little bit more distributed, because I think the token ownership right now is still quite centralized. You can tell that from the way that the delegating to nodes is as well. It's incredibly top heavy at the moment. So hopefully hopefully some more education happens there and they spread that out a little bit. Obviously, we would like to rank well, but we're happy where we are at the moment. So I think as time goes by, we'll definitely start to see more volume come through. So
yeah, it's interesting to see. It's the first I've ever seen like a fee operated chain where you get rewarded on the fees. That's brilliant. Something fresh. That's all good. Innovative.
Now, Usurper, let's go. I think this is our last topic for the day, unless any of our viewers want to ask some questions. I think we've been dropping off viewers as we've been going on to this testnet stuff. But in any case, so Secret Network bringing privacy to other coins. So I haven't read up on how they're doing this yet, and someone else might be able to tell me, but they've added sJUNO, sSTARS, sLUNA, and sGrav to the coins that are able to be turned into S coins, I believe, and then transferred around without traceability. So they are also doing an Axelar bridge integration, which will bring privacy to other blockchains through the bridge and bridged assets. So this could be interesting.
This sounds like a Lavender 5 conversation, isn't it?
Certainly does. Lavender or Whisper.
Or Whisper, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I saw that announcement. The bridging piece I can't really talk to on the sGrav and Stargaze. I actually thought those were already there, so my bad. I didn't recognize that. So that's cool. I wish I would be a little bit more involved in Secret. We're more of a user than the validator and those types of things, but I don't have too much to say about it overall.
We are an incredibly poorly ranked validator.
Delegate to King Notes.
Yeah. Decentralize the network, validate.
I delegate to King Nodes and Blockscape.
Oh,
Nice.
Man. Thank you for your sacrifice.
It was SG. It was SG first of all. Then obviously when they announced that they were leaving, I thought, well, there's only so many people that I can delegate to after that.
To be fair on Secret, I work very hard on trying to mitigate our missed blocks there. Even though we make no money, we still try to get the lowest missed block count there that we possibly can, and it's been improving over time. We're looking pretty good now.
And same with a little bit of a. Sorry, no.
I think
we have a little bit of a pump there.
Hey,
did it not have a bit of a rally Secret coin recently?
Oh, you can rally all at once. I've got none of it. A rally in Secret doesn't help me one fucking bit.
Yep.
I stand silence.
Yeah. So, so we've got our Secret misses down to 19 and 22,500, and we've got our EVMOS misses down to 23 in 90,000. So, been working hard on improving both of those. I know all of you guys probably know that EVMOS struggle.
Yeah.
Schultz, God bless him, fucking sorted my nodes right out with a couple of tweaks. The boys, he's really good, man. I like what he does. There was a couple of tweaks I'm happy to share with you. Helped Omni out with it the other day as well, and instantly stopped missing blocks. Couldn't believe it, but yeah.
Would they be the peer tweaks, removing your peers?
No. No, it was more of the. Let me get the message up. Because with a few whiskies, I don't want to quote things that I was just bullshit. Let me see.
So, what is your number?
Say that again.
Jesus. So I'm just looking at ping.pub at the moment, just at the.
Yeah, I'm kind of like 30 or something like that now, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I think most misses here are in the hundreds. And when you look across the whole set, it's average of hundreds, and there's quite a few in the thousands. Because it's with the amount of traffic on.
It was to do with the snapshot intervals. Told me to set it to 1500. Maybe zero that from 1500 to zero it, and massively improved it straight away. So it did.
Oh yeah, so the default config for EVMOS is to have snapshotting. That's definitely one thing you got to change. I think mine is no snapshotting. I'm sure your server is the same.
Yep. Yeah.
Just as soon as I did that, and then the pruning started changing it from a rounded number to like maybe 29 or whatever you're doing, and then just like so you're not pruning alongside other validators.
Right.
Was also a big difference straight away.
Yeah, you can see those prune misses. They come across as big stripes down the.
Yep.
I did not know anything about it until but that's it. It's the community. You ask questions.
If you're using Horcrux and you have multiple sentries, to have the pruning different on both of them, so that when you get a prune miss on one, you don't get a prune miss on the other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I never realized.
It's pretty interesting. Like these are bigger processes in there, but it doesn't take much for that signature to get missed, right? There's such a short window in there that even like simple things, like a not simple things, but like a prune going on, or like you said before, like bad persistent peers. If you got too many of those, like it's easy to get the priorities kind of mixed up in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big seed guy. I've always liked to use persistent peers, but lately definitely been getting some better results from using a reliable peer.
Mm-hmm.
A reliable seed provider instead of peers, because these faster networks, if you've got peering timeouts, it just really affects your blocks for something.
It was something that Simon always taught me from day one, is like, don't take all the peers, take 5, are pretty decent, and use that, and then your address book.json gets built from whatever you start on, doesn't it? So
definitely when we're starting a network, I only pick like 3 or 4 peers that I know are solid peers. Like I'll pick Rhino and Pokachu and like Lavender 5. So I'll pick peers that I know are solid and that won't change. And you don't need, if you put in 50 peers, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, for sure.
You're definitely going to have a bad time. So a good trick is to have minimum good peers that are going to be peering well to the network, right? But also increase your incoming and outgoing peers to like 200 and 100, which uses more bandwidth, but it gets you a larger distribution of peers across the network. So, obviously
always pick your super a lot of the time.
Yeah, that comes with the caveat that you need to have decent internet connectivity and latency for that to work properly. Otherwise, if you just set a shitload of peers and you don't have enough bandwidth or low enough latency, you'll just cut your own throat. You'll start missing everything. So
I've seen teams get smarter about this too, because like some of the recent test nets, not the ones that we talked about here, but before that, like they would post a peer list of like 50 names, right? They're like, here's a list of peers, and then in the config it would be like 30 outbound or 30 inbound and 10 outbound connections. So every peer would be full, and everybody's putting the same 50 names in there, so nobody can get on the fucking network, right?
Yeah.
And then Sei, I think when they just launched it just now, they skipped. I put a seed up, but they just actually waited a little bit and then produced an address book and put an address book up and just said, here, just use this, which actually is not a bad idea. Like I have a pretty decent address book as a starting point. And then they also did, I think, 150 inbound, 150 outbound peers as the default. Like it's shipped with that out of the testnet structure. So no matter what, if you got a name, you're in. Like if you got an actual port, because there's so many open spots, which for a testnet is a really good idea. I think in mainnet, I agree, at 150 becomes.
So one problem with doing the address book thing that they did was that again, you can end up with a lot of connections on those address book peers.
You can.
And when people do that, they don't put in seeds and peers into their config, because you don't actually need them if you've got an address book that's already populated, right? So I think that their booting up methodology didn't include putting peers and seeds.
It did not.
If you have an issue, or you have previously tried to run the network right with like the wrong genesis or something like that, and then you do an unsafe reset, a lot of people won't know that that'll piss off the address book, and you'll have to go and download it again or reinstate it. So, so a lot of people just weren't getting connections to the network because they had done something that deleted the address book after they had placed it there, and then they're just like, why is this sitting here, dialing no peers for 3 hours? And you're like, well, because you haven't set any peers.
Because
I had that quite recently. I had that, didn't I, Simon?
Is that why Simon's laughing so much?
Yeah. I've got a lot of problems that I just bounce off Simon, to be honest. It used to be you, no.
Used to be you.
That's the advantage of having a team. Right? Team helps you. So
but on a closing note for once, man, I've been there from day one. sJUNO was my first network to validate on, and everybody's showing me how to get on with things, and that's how I met Simon. That's how I met loads of other people. But we just want to try and transfer that standard of education from the top to bottom down to new people moving on to the network and try and reduce the, crazy governance proposals. It all links together, man. But we should set the standard going forward, and good validators like us should portray that image going forward. There's a line of there's a level of standard that needs to be set to be a validator in this network, and we should just reiterate that all the way down. That's what I'm doing this for now, really, as a side note.
Definitely looking forward to reading some of your content, man. And I think
it'll be someone else that writes it, not me, for sure.
I think we have a few planned articles for the Game of Nodes Medium as well about security and stuff, but I think we have been distracted by other things. But as a conglomerate, I think we intend to produce a few articles in there. So
yes,
yeah.
If we ever stop talking about governance.
Yeah, man, we always end up back at governance. But I think our first, I was going to collaborate with Lavender on node hardening. I think was our first one for starting off with node hardening security, because there's definitely very easy things you can do to harden your nodes, which is becoming less and less relevant for your actual sentries and more relevant for your signers. So I'm leaning away from hard security on sentries just because they're becoming disposable. So, anyway, I think we've just about exhausted our topics for the day, and I think we've probably been here long enough that we won't run through what we're excited about this week. So I'm ready to sign off. Usurper, what do you think, mate?
See you next week. Thank Highlander, Simon. Good. Thanks for coming on. Hope to have you guys on again.
Good to meet you, Usurper.
Yeah. You too, buddy.
And
it's been too long.
I'll catch you soon, man. Nice one.
Thanks for showing up, guys.
See ya.